Welcome back, folks, to hashtag AskGSM here today. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, less than 24 hours removed from WWE Fastlane, airing live on the WWE Network last night. And overall, I thought it was an alright show. I have my full written review up right now on nextairwrestling.net for my full thoughts on the show. Check that out. I'll be talking a little bit about it here today in the Q&A video. A lot of questions from last night's pay-per-view and what's in store for WrestleMania 32. And I'm excited for Raw tonight, so hopefully, I'm hoping it's going to be a good show that kicks off the road to WrestleMania, the official road to WrestleMania, on the right foot with a bang. So that being said, let's kick off the show here today. And before we get to the first question, if you want to send in a question, you can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook with Facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights. I did not put it up last night because of the pay-per-view. I was busy. But if not, you can usually put a question up on the wall itself. Or you can just leave a comment on this very video, the easiest path you can probably do to get a question in the video series. I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. So anyway, getting down to this week's questions from Frankishire15 from YouTube. Was this year's Fastlane installment better or worse than last year's? You know, I thought that'd be an easier question to answer, and it's not, honestly. I mean, you can either say yes or no, and it doesn't really matter. I thought last year's show, which I just watched recently on the network, and I reviewed it yesterday for WrestleRant, I thought that was an alright show. I enjoyed it. Last night was kind of the same. Like, if you watch it back a year from now, it's not going to be worth it. Last year's installment was not worth watching back in its entirety. I love the main event, and even the U.S. title match I thought between Cena and Rusev was really good, but that was about it. It was a two-match show. So was this one. You know, Styles and Jericho was my favorite match of the night. The main event was really, really good. But other than that, it was pretty much the same thing. A lot of the other matches either weren't really good, not memorable, or just kind of meh, just kind of mediocre. So I wouldn't say it was better or worse. I would say it was kind of right on the same level. And that's the same thing. We get this shit all the time with the February pay-per-views. The last really, really good February pay-per-view that I fucking loved was a 2011 Elimination Chamber show. Ever since then, that was 5 years ago. 2012, 2013, 2014, all those Elimination Chamber shows were a waste of time. And now the Fastlane shows from last year and this year I thought were a waste of time too. So we'll see, but I can't say it was better or worse than last year's show. I thought it was kind of on the same level in my opinion. His next question: could a multi-man match for the Intercontinental Championship happen at WrestleMania with the likes of Kevin Owens, Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, AJ Styles, Chris Jericho, and Ryback? I hope not. Will it happen? I mean, could it happen? Absolutely, it could happen. Do I want it to happen? No. I really enjoyed the ladder match last year, but if you think about it, the build to WrestleMania for that match was so stupid. With everyone stealing the bell, and R-Truth was involved, and Stardust randomly, Luke Harper, which was a great, and all these guys are great athletes, and like I said, it made for a really, really good match. But the build itself, no one gave two shits about the Intercontinental Championship, and Daniel Bryan wasn't even confirmed for the match until 2 weeks before the fucking show. And then they ended up winning. So, again, the match was great, but it's not really worth it for the build. I think all those guys deserve. Not everyone's going to get a singles match at WrestleMania, but I feel like Owens and Styles kind of makes itself. If you want to do Styles, Jericho, Owens, that's good too. I feel like Styles, Jericho should go beyond last night, should go beyond Fastlane. I don't know if it will. We'll find out more tonight. The feud has been so good that I would really love to see it go on, beyond Fastlane and kind of go on until WrestleMania with the Jericho heel turn. Ryback, I don't really think it really matters if he's the IC title match, to be honest with you. I don't really think it fucking matters at all. Same with Dolph Ziggler at this point. These guys could just be thrown in the Battle Royal. I hate to say it, but not everyone can get a singles match at WrestleMania. And Dean Ambrose should be doing something by himself, too. I would even do Owens and Styles and then Jericho Ambrose. That's a match I pitched months ago because they started building towards that at Night of Champions back in September. So I would love to see those two matches at WrestleMania. Will we get them? Who knows, but that's the way that I would book it. The first KFC, also from YouTube: should Wade Barrett leave WWE when his contract expires? I can't blame him. By this point, I mean, the guy's been with the company for over 6 years. 6 years by Tuesday. 6 years tomorrow, actually, on the main roster. I mean, he's been with the company a lot longer, almost a decade. He was signed back in 2007 to a developmental deal. But I think he should. I mean, I've always said I'm kind of leaving a little bit of hope for a Wade Barrett world title push. But ever since they merged the two world championships back in late 2013, the chances of that happening were so minuscule with one world championship and all the terrible gimmicks from the brawler shit to the bad news shit to whatever the fucking King Barrett crap has been. All this other crap, it's not going to get him over. I mean, he has been over at certain points, but either injuries or just bad booking has kind of prevented him from getting to the next level in WWE, in my opinion. So at this point, according to reports, he's not happy within the company. So if that's the case, I would just say leave. If he's just going to be a lackey for the League of Nations for the next 2-3 years and plunging toilets with his scepter that he won from King of the Ring, then it's not really worth it. I would just leave the company and hopefully he can. I mean, he's only 35 years old. I mean, he's kind of up there, but I think he's 35 or maybe a little younger. But anyway, he can go over to TNA. I mean, a little thing with Drew Galloway would be cool. Kind of wrecking up the independent scene over in the European, over the European independent scene. Or just doing acting, which I know he loves and he's done before and he enjoys doing that, or TV shows or something. So, yeah, I would rather see him, as a big Wade Barrett fan, I would rather see him leave and be happy than stick around, get fucking jobbed out, and give people hope that he's going to get pushed at the level he deserves to be at anytime soon. So I would just rather have him leave. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but if he's not happy, he might as well leave. His next question, what's next for the Wyatt family and how weird was it for them to lose in that 6-man tag team match? Honestly, I get this question all the time. No, nothing on you, the first KFC, but I'm just saying that I get this question so much. And every time I get asked this question, either after TLC, after Survivor Series, after the Rumble, after every post-pay-per-view show, I'm pretty sure I get asked this question because the booking of the Wyatt family is so asinine that it's really hard to say what's next for them because they're booked so horribly. These guys are booked like shit. They lost at Hell in a Cell. They got jobbed out at Survivor Series. They won at TLC. They beat a bunch of, guys from 20 years ago, the ECW originals. Then all right showing in the Rumble before they all got tossed by Brock Lesnar. Bray Wyatt didn't last until the end. And then they lost to fucking Big Show, Kane, and Ryback clean at Fastlane. Like, how am I supposed to take these guys seriously as a threat? I feel like a broken record at this point, ranting on and on and on about how the Wyatt family's been basically ruined. Not even buried, ruined over the last 2 years, ever since that botched feud with John Cena. And I feel by this point, it's not even it's a lost cause. I mean, Bray Wyatt, there is still hope for Bray Wyatt, but as a group, I just don't fucking care anymore. I don't fucking care. I don't know what you do with them at WrestleMania. The League of Nations looked like they might be tied up with New Day. Whoop-de-doo. And that was the only real match that I was excited for. Brock Lesnar and Bray Wyatt might kick off tonight on Raw. If so, good luck with that. If the Wyatt family can't beat Big Show, Kane, and Ryback clean, just albeit at all, on a pay-per-view, what would make a casual viewer think that Bray Wyatt is any threat to Brock Lesnar whatsoever? It makes no sense. So, I honestly don't really care. It was stupid to have them lose in that match last night. I don't know why that was. Some people were thinking, maybe you make them look weak here so they come back out in the main event and cost Brock Lesnar the win. That didn't even happen. I don't even think Brock Lesnar is supposed to be on the show tonight. So what the fuck? It just makes no sense. It makes no sense. I don't know what's next for these guys, and like I said, I don't really care. I hate to say it, but they've broken me. I don't know what's next for him because I know that if Bray Wyatt, if he wrestled at WrestleMania, he probably will more than likely not win. Unless he goes up against the Social Outcasts or something. If we get the Wyatt family and the Social Outcasts, I'll buy it. Whatever gives us a Wyatt family win on a big stage. And his next question, should Chris Jericho versus AJ Styles in an Iron Man match happen at WrestleMania? It would be sick. It wouldn't be 60 minutes. I don't think that's ever happening again. With WrestleMania being 4 hours, they have enough time, but they really like to use a lot of that 4 hours on entrances and musical performances and promos and matches, and they like to get as many matches as they can on the card, or there's as many people on the card. So if anything, if that was going to happen, it would be a 30-minute Iron Man match, not 60. Which is still good, which would still be a great match. I don't think it's going to be an Iron Man match. I don't think they're going to face off at all at WrestleMania. I think the feud ended last night, but like I said, I really hope it doesn't, and it didn't, and I really hope they continue the feud and have another match at WrestleMania, even if it's with Owens and Ambrose. I mean, like I said, a multi-man match with, I'm not really high in a multi-man match at WrestleMania, but if it's 4 guys in a fatal 4-way, I'm fine with that. But if it's like 6 men or an 8-man ladder match like we got last year, I have zero interest, to be honest with you. The match would be good, but I don't need to see. That's like another Money in the Bank match. Save that for July or June or whatever. I mean, it's possible that we get Jericho and Styles at WrestleMania. I don't think it's going to be an Iron Man match, but it would be cool, though. Should League of Nations turn face and feud with the New Day? Like I said, I mean, I thought the segment last night was hot, steamy poop. I laughed at some parts that Edge and Christian said. I thought the interaction between them and New Day was kind of cool. But when League of Nations came out, I didn't give two shits at all. Like, this is another group I don't fucking care about. Like, I can't even say I like anyone in this group. Like, I like Bray Wyatt, but no one in this group I really care about at all. I like Wade Barrett, but he's not wrestling. Del Rio is damaged goods. Rusev is whatever at this point. No one cares about Rusev. And then Sheamus is, again, whatever. No one cares about Sheamus at this point either. So I don't know how you would turn them babyface. If anything, I would turn the New Day face, which they could do if they wanted to. But I'd much rather just see New Day versus Dudley Boys versus Usos at WrestleMania than fucking League of Nations versus New Day. Honestly, like, I don't really want to see that at all. Again, like with the League of Nations, I'd much rather just pair them off with the Wyatt family, maybe turn the Wyatt family face, give them something new to do. But with the League of Nations, if they went babyface, who would cheer? Because no one cares about these guys. It's not even that the fans hate them. Like, no one fucking cares about them because they lose all the time, even more than the Wyatt family. At least the Wyatt family had a match in this show. So, I don't know. I don't really care to see that, but a New Day babyface turn, I'd be open to that if that match happened, League of Nations versus New Day. But as of right now, it's not really a match I'm all that intrigued of seeing at WrestleMania. At JJF Tweets, he tweeted this to me last week, but from Twitter, who do you want to see in the Global Cruiserweight Series on the WWE Network? I like the idea of the series. I think it's great. I mean, you guys have been asking me for a long time about the potential return of a Cruiserweight division in WWE and about a series in the WWE Network. I've always said it was a good idea. Right now, I mean, with the current members of the roster, I don't think it would work, because guys like Evan Bourne and Yoshitatsu and Tyson Kidd are either injured or gone from the company. So it's not going to work as well in 2016 with the roster that we have. But based off what we've been hearing about them picking up people off of the independent scene and some other NXT guys that we haven't seen on TV yet in NXT, I think it's a cool idea, and I think it's set to debut this summer. So who would I want to see in it? I know JJF, or Jared, he put in he wrote a column for my website, nextwrestling.thispastweek.net, for about people that he would like to see in the series or how he would like to see it formatted and stuff like that. And he's also written a couple columns about people, the Indie Injection series, and he wrote about Zack Sabre Jr. Based off what I read from Jared about him in that column a couple weeks ago, I would love to see him in the WWE Network series. I don't know how possible that is. A lot of guys from Lucha, but I know that's not happening because they're under contracts. Guys like Phoenix and Aerostar, not Aero, is it Aerostar? Aerostar, Phoenix, Aerostar, and not Mil Muertes. I'm mixing up all my names here. Prince Puma, those guys like that, but that's not happening. I believe they're all under contract. And Helico would be amazing. Again, I think he's under contract too. So I'm not exactly sure. I just want to see fresh faces. Like, using the guys in NXT that have yet to debut on TV yet is cool, but I really want to see people from all across the world and really kind of live up to that global name in the title, not just use people that are already down in developmental. I really want to see people from all around the world, a lot of indie sensations. Like, I know Ring of Honor is kind of doing something similar right now at the Top Prospect Tournament, and I'm excited for it. I think it could be, the series itself has a lot of potential to be very, very fun if booked properly. At Scarlet 1, why do you think John Cena's rise to the WWE title in 2005 went well, where Roman Reigns in 2015 struggled with? Yeah, it's hard to say. I guess the easy answer would be just it's a different time. But it's not like Cena's rise to the WWE title went all well and good. I mean, in 2005, if you're talking about going into WrestleMania, it's because John Cena was organically built up over the course of 3 years. Roman Reigns, by the time he went for the title at WrestleMania 31 last year, he had been in the main roster for a little under 3 years, for about 2.5 years. So that wasn't really the issue. It was just kind of that John Cena went from being a no-namer to a tag team guy to the U.S. title guy for about a year, and then before transitioning into the main event scene. And even then, even when he was a mid-card guy, he was already kind of flirting with the main event scene. He had pay-per-view matches with Kurt Angle, with Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship and just standard singles matches. So he wasn't completely removed from the main event scene when he was a mid-card guy. So anyway, John Cena's rise in 2005 before he won the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 21, I feel like it was more a case of him just being built up organically through the tag team division, through the mid-card scene, before finally winning the WWE title. Roman Reigns went from being a part of the Shield to kind of breaking out on his own for a couple of months before getting hurt, came back, won the Rumble immediately, and then went on to WrestleMania, the main event for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. It's not that he doesn't deserve it, it's just that his character didn't deserve it, and I don't know, it's really hard to say. It's, hindsight is 2020. It was a year ago, and even now, people are still complaining about him in the main event, which is also understandable. But he's in a much better spot now than I feel like he was a year ago in terms of like the fan reactions and whatever. The crowd didn't shit all over him last night like I thought they would. It's not like they cheered the hell out of him, but the Cleveland wasn't a great crowd to begin with anyway. But they were kind of 50-50, a little bit more, impartial to Roman Reigns, a little more not biased, but you know what I mean. He wasn't completely booed out of the building like I thought he was, considering that he wasn't, the lesser of the fan favorites in that match with Dean Ambrose and Brock Lesnar. But getting back to your question, I feel like with Roman Reigns, like I said, he didn't really have that organic rise. He just went from the Shield to a singles guy within like a month or two before going after the World Championship. That's why, and usually, history dictates that if you go, with the rare exception of guys like Brock Lesnar, people like Sheamus who won the title within months, what is there left for him to do? He won the World Heavyweight Championship a couple years later, but, now that Sheamus has kind of already done it all, no one gives a shit about him. He's a good wrestler, but no one gives a shit about his character because he's essentially already done it all in storyline. Anyway, so the next question, what is your personal favorite phase of Daniel Bryan's career? It's hard to say. I love the WrestleMania 30 stuff with him, with him versus the Authority. It was very aggravating as a fan, technically, but it was both from a storyline standpoint, from a booking standpoint. Let's face it, had it not been for Punk leaving and for everything else that happened on the road to WrestleMania 30, he would not have been in the spot that he was at. Honestly, that was never the long-term plan. It's going to piss the fans off for now that he's not in the main event of WrestleMania, but he'll be fine, and he's not in the main event of WrestleMania now in the fall, but our long-term plan is to build him to that point. That was never the plan. He was always supposed to be in a match with Sheamus on, the opener or the second match with Sheamus at WrestleMania 30. So, that being said, that was fun, especially, the Yes Movement stuff and, the leaks leading into WrestleMania. I'm not talking about, around the Rumble time, but, literally the weeks before WrestleMania, 2-3 weeks ahead of time. That stuff I thought was great. But for me, my favorite phase of Daniel Bryan's career has to be Team Hell No. I talked about it last week or the week before, but the diagram stuff and them in the diner and the anger management segments with Dr. Shelby and Harold, that stuff was hilarious. In WWE, what made those segments so great was that WWE rarely ever gets comedy right. It's usually force-fed or it's very forced or whatever, and it's just not genuine, And it's not funny as a result. But I thought these two guys just created magic. Daniel Bryan, one of the world's greatest wrestlers, and then you have Kane, who after 15 years still still managed to have a really good run in WWE. So it was amazing, the fact they had so much great chemistry together, both as characters and as a team in the ring, and they had really good matches, really good segments. So Team Hell No would probably be my personal favorite phase of Daniel Bryan in his WWE career. And finally, their final question here. At the risk of going on a long-winded rant, Fastlane was just a reminder to me how frustrating being a wrestling fan can be. I want to say no, the Wyatt family aren't just a bunch of hopeless boogeymen, but then they lose to a team involving 2016 Kane and Big Show. I want to say Brie Bella isn't that bad at wrestling, but then she messes up a crucifix pin and does awkwardly tap-outs. Seriously, it's not like I like being a cynical mark, but come on, what else am I supposed to say at these things? So here's the thing. Like I said, I'm not huge on shitting on stuff and whatever. And if people criticize the product, I'm not going to say, oh, you fucking mark, shut your mouth or whatever. In a very rare instance will I say something like that. Otherwise, if you don't like the show, you don't like the show. If you thought it was a terrible show, I might argue I thought it was good. But if you said I hated the show, that's your own personal liking and disliking. I'm not going to change what you like and dislike. But if you said, oh, I thought the show is shit, I might say, here's a couple reasons why I thought it was good, or vice versa, But in this case, in regards to last night, I am not going to argue against that at all. There were definitely points of the show, the points that you pointed out that I thought were not good. I thought the Wyatt family, that match was all right. The finish was just, like I said before, just mind-boggling with the Wyatt family losing. The Divas title match I didn't think was really that good at all. I thought both women had a good showing, both Charlotte and Brie Bella, but there were far too many sloppy spots. It wasn't Brie Bella's fault. I know you kind of nitpicked her in your comment here, but I don't think it was fully Brie Bella's fault or Charlotte's fault. They just didn't have good chemistry. And I've seen this match one too many times before on Raw and SmackDown to the point where I don't care anymore. They did a good job of making it seem like Brie Bella had a shot of winning the belt, but the match itself in terms of how it was wrestled and the finish I thought was kind of weak, and like you said, the awkward tap outs from Bray, it wasn't a good match. So you have every right to be critical about these certain parts of the show. I mean, if you said like every part of the show sucked, I'd probably argue against that. But the points that you pointed out, the parts that you pointed out, definitely I would have, a legitimate gripe against as well. I was complaining about the same exact things on Twitter, like why did the Wyatt family lose? That match wasn't really good, whatever. I mean, I loved Styles and Jericho. I loved the main event. I didn't love the finish, but I mean, it was kind of predictable, so I'm not complaining. The rest of the show, like I said, was just kind of there. So you have every right to be cynical in this respect, in regards to certain parts of the show. Like if you said the show was shit and everything was bad, like I'd probably argue against that. But the parts that you pointed out, I'm absolutely in favor of in terms of they weren't really good, and I shared the same feelings coming out of those matches. At Sean Markistic, his question was, favorite Royal Rumble match? I've talked about this before, but 2010, I won't go on a long-winded rant here because I've already kind of talked about it. But it was the first ever pay-per-view that I ordered, first ever Rumble that I watched. 2011's up there, this year's Rumble is up there, but my favorite has to be 2010. His second question, what's your favorite original special on the WWE Network? So either WWE 24, the one on Brooklyn, which almost brought me to tears. Like, that was incredible. The one that aired right after Brooklyn. Like, I think it aired in, like, September or so. And also the Warrior special that they aired right after he died. They did a couple of them, but they ended up re-releasing on DVD, which I have. And that was just, that legitimately brought me to tears when I watched it both the first time and the second time when I got it on DVD a year later. That was a great special. I'm pretty sure you can still find that on the network. But I'm sure there's others, but my two favorite specials on the WWE Network so far have been that one, the WWE 24 one on NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, and the Warrior special from about 2 years ago, right after the Warrior passed away. Push, repackage, and release. Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, and Luke Harper. This is a hard one. Undoubtedly, I would push Styles. Owens and Harper. I would repackage Harper, but that would mean releasing Owens. So I would repackage Owens, maybe turn him face or something. I have no idea. And then release Harper, just because I feel like Harper isn't as valuable of an asset to the company as much as Styles and Owens are right now. Harper, I feel like, as great of an athlete as he is, and he is very underrated, they're never going to give him the push that he deserves as a singles competitor. I mean, he got it for like a cup of coffee in late 2014 when he won the IC title belt, but then he lost every fucking match, and even he himself talked about it on Talk is Jericho not too long ago, how he was booked like shit. And then he went out there, him and Dolph Ziggler, with chips in their shoulders, and had a great fucking match at TLC. That ladder match was amazing. So, but yeah, still in regards, in comparison to Styles and Owens, I would get rid of Harper, repackage Owens, and push AJ Styles. At Bradford R, will WWE ever find someone good enough to replace Justin Roberts? I love Justin Roberts. He was my favorite ring announcer of all time. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, from the time that I've been a fan. I always loved Justin Roberts. I still imitate his ring announcing to this day. I thought his ring announcing style was great. So I was really sad to see him go in late 2014. Lillian Garcia, she basically has tenure at this point. She's been there for almost 20 years, so she's not going anywhere. She's really good, but she messes up a lot. Jokingly, like, haha, like it doesn't really matter, but she does botch a lot. Eden, I think, is really good. JoJo's really good. Even the guy down in NXT, the Mark Hamilton guy, I think is really good. I don't think none of them are even close to being as good, in my opinion, or being in terms of being my favorite as Justin Roberts. But it's not like the ring announcing is like it's in a state of disarray like commentary is. You know what I mean? It's not a huge priority because you only hear him like for a couple minutes every single show. So it's not a huge deal, but maybe at some point I'm sure they will find someone as good, if not better, than Justin Roberts at some point down the line. Out of Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, and AJ Styles, who is the most and least likely to be a world champion someday? Most likely, I'd have to go with Finn Balor. I mean, they're obviously higher on him than any other person you just mentioned, so I gotta go with Balor. The guy's a star waiting to happen. He already is a star, but I'm talking about on the main roster. Least likely, this answer might surprise you, but Samoa Joe. I think with Sami Zayn, they're more behind him, and AJ Styles and Samoa Joe still have that teenage stench. I know, Styles is being booked very, very well on the main roster. I don't know if they see him as a world championship contender at some point, especially with one world title. He has a bigger chance, though, in my opinion, than Joe, just because Joe, at one point, it seems like now they're finally changing their mind, but at one point they were hell-bent on keeping him down in NXT, relegating him to developmental to work with the younger guys. But because he's exceeded expectations, his matches have been great, he himself as a character has been amazing, they're kind of coming around to bringing him up to the main roster at some point. But even then, I don't think like a match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania or a world championship is in his future. Don't get me wrong, would love to fucking see it. I just don't really think it's happening. Like I said, that might surprise some people. You would think Sami Zayn might be the least likely just because he's a smaller dude, but so is Daniel Bryan. When I look at Sami Zayn, I get that same Daniel Bryan feel. Like he could fill in for Daniel Bryan in terms of that ultimate underdog, the underdog from the underground, like his t-shirt says that I have. It's a great t-shirt. So I can kind of see him filling that void when he gets to the main roster, that he could be a world champion, who knows? But Samoa Joe, I don't think their world championship is ever going to be in his future in WWE. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see it happening. Do you think Alex Riley and Ty Dillinger should feud? Both are very underrated in my opinion. I don't see why not. I'm a big fan of Alex Riley. I like Ty Dillinger. I talked about it last week. We talked about it more in depth on WWE EC Radio, only available on XRWrestling.net, cheap plug. But we talked about how the match was kind of inconsequential, and I can't really judge yet. Riley lost. I don't know if he's supposed to be going heel soon or if he already is a heel. It's kind of confusing. If the point was just to give Dillinger a win, then this was a waste of time. But if it's leading to something, Riley will attack Dillinger next week on the show, then I think it might be good for him and it might, lead to a feud. So I think it's good. I mean, Dillinger's never really had a full-fledged feud in WWE yet as a singles guy, and neither has really Riley. I mean, he had a feud last year with Kevin Owens, but that was about it, and he just came back from injury. So I think it'd be good for both guys. It just got to be, you got to tread lightly with this feud because people don't already care as it is, because Riley's just kind of coming back and Dillinger's been already established as a enhancement level guy. So who knows? But I think as of right now, like when, Dillinger I think he beat Solomon Crow like a year ago. That led to nothing. Crow did not go heel. He was just there and he was fucking losing every single week, and Dillinger got a win and that was it. And it was the last match that he won. So hopefully it leads to something. I don't know if it will. I hope it does. And putting them in a feud against each other, I don't see why not. How differently would the Miz's face run have turned out if he was made the sole survivor at Survivor Series 2012? I don't think it would have made a huge difference. He did last until like the final two, or I think it was the final two, him and Orton against Del Rio and Ziggler. I think Ziggler deserved it more. I was so happy when Ziggler was the sole survivor on that show. So happy. I think he really, really deserved it. And it did kick off kind of his, the big role that he was on for many, many weeks, before he ran into the roadblock that was John Cena. But he did beat John Cena at TLC, the following month before losing to him again and again and again. And then he cashed into WrestleMania, or the night after WrestleMania, sorry. I don't think having Miz as a sole survivor would have made a huge difference. I think where they went wrong, and it might have been you, Brett, who's asked me this before, like, why didn't it work out? Or do you think it could have worked out as a face for the Miz? Do you think he could have worked as a baby face? I've always said I feel like it could have worked just because he was a heel for so long, and don't get me wrong, he's a lot better as a heel than he is as a baby face. He is a natural heel. I just feel like he had been a heel for so long. The babyface route was something new. It was fresh. But then they booked him to lose and to talk on Miz TV and have these bad segments and do bad comedy and lose and win again and lose. So he was made to look like a fucking loser. I know I've said that about a lot of people so far in this episode, but he was made to look like a fucking loser for most of 2013. And he was made to look like Randy Orton's bitch most weeks. Like, it got to the point where, like, just turn him back heel already. This is a waste. And, I mean, it's not like he's a lot better off as a heel. I mean, he's doing a lot better than he was 2-3 years ago as a babyface. But I don't think, when he was around Survivor Series, that was like the week removed from when he went babyface to begin with. So I could see what you're talking about, but I think Ziggler needed the win more just because he was the Mr. Money in the Bank, and they were already kind of en route to pushing him going into TLC in the main event match with John Cena. So I would have kept that, I keep the outcome the same. I mean, it would have been cool if Miz was the last man standing, but I think Ziggler beating Orton clean really added to his credibility at that time. If the reports about Wade Barrett leaving WWE in June come to fruition, do you think he is worthy of a spot in the Hall of Fame? Wow. I mean, the WWE Hall of Fame is it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's subjective. Subjective, absolutely, I think is the word I'm looking for here, because there's no real set criteria. I mean, Sting he wrestled 2 matches in WWE. It has nothing to do with the WWE careers. I'm not saying that's the case with Wade Barrett, but, it's basically the WWE and whatever the hell we own federation, like the Hall of Fame, pretty much. If they own ECW, if they own Smoky Mountain, if they own WCW and you did something of note in those companies, then you belong in the Hall of Fame. Pretty much. Honestly, that's the way that I look at it. With Wade Barrett, let's look at what this guy did. Okay, so he won the first season of NXT, and I'm not shitting on Wade Barrett. I love Wade Barrett, but let's see if his career is Hall of Fame worthy here. So he won NXT. He, led the Nexus. That was one of the hottest angles WWE ever did, especially up to that point. And then he won the IC title 5 times, and that was it. Basically, he really hasn't done much else other than win that championship 5 times. So would it be a crime to put him in the Hall of Fame? Down the line, maybe not. I mean, if Rikishi could get in for having the success that he did, Wade Barrett was in more main event title matches than fucking Rikishi on pay-per-view. So if Rikishi could get in, who the fuck knows? But Rikishi's a part of the Inoue family, so that's a whole other story for another day. As far as Wade Barrett, I don't think he is. I mean, I think that's kind of cutting it. But then is Kofi Kingston worthy? Like, we've talked about this before, but Wade Barrett, I don't even know. Wade Barrett had the Nexus, but that was so short-lived. I mean, the success that group had was so short-lived. Nothing to do with them, but it was doing with, had to do all with the booking. That when they lost at SummerSlam and all that other shit. But I wouldn't cry if he went to the Hall of Fame at some point. Cry why is this happening? But I don't think he's not at all first ballot. If they start to run out of people 10 years from now, I could see it happening. But definitely not anytime soon, if really ever, to be honest. I like Wade Barrett. I just don't think when I see Wade Barrett's career, if you induct people like Barrett, I know Rikishi's already in. But let's put Rikishi aside for a moment. If you start including people like Barrett in the Hall of Fame, that opens the doors for every fucking mid-carder in the last 20 years. Honestly, like Carlito, Shelton Benjamin. I'm not saying they're not... Okay, I am saying they're not worthy, but I mean, do you need to include every mid-carder? The Hall of Fame was for the elite of the elite, the Ultimate Warriors, the Bob Backlunds, the Bret Harts, the Shawn Michaels, the Stone Cold Steve Austins. If you start throwing people in like that, then why wouldn't you just throw in the fucking... I don't know. I'm trying to think of mid-carders, like Steve Blackman or something. No. Maybe Ken Shamrock, maybe, for the stuff that he did outside of WWE with the UFC and whatever, and the impact that he had as a mixed martial artist in WWE, but that opens the doors for every mid-carder ever, and that's a long list that you do not need in the Hall of Fame. Just include the entire fucking roster if that's the case. Next question. If the WWE is able to build up the social outcast with enough credibility, would you like to see them face New Day at WrestleMania? No. I really enjoyed their match in main event last week. I don't know if anyone saw it. I doubt it. But go out of your way to watch it. It was really entertaining. Bo Dallas was on commentary. The match itself was really good. It's not a WrestleMania-worthy match. Like I said earlier, I'd much rather just see New Day versus Dudley's versus Usos at WrestleMania. The social outcasts can do their thing in the Battle Royal and dominate in there with 4 guys if they want to. But I have no intention... Them versus New Day at WrestleMania, although it would be a fun feud, it's more like a filler feud or like a B-level pay-per-view, if anything, at most. But it's not WrestleMania worthy. I'd much rather just see them in the Battle Royal and have New Day, Usos, and Dudley's face off for the tag team titles. Next question from @RJ_Marceau. Over the eras of wrestling, who are some of the most underutilized wrestlers from the 80s, 90s, Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression, and PG era? Great question. So I guess RJ's new thing is that he wants to stump me with every question that he sends in. Not that it's a hard question, it just takes time to answer. I do not implore that everyone do this because this video would be 3 hours long. But the occasional, the more you think about a question is always good. So I like this question. The underutilized wrestlers of each era. So it took me about 10 minutes to think about a couple of people. And I'm going to leave a lot of people out here, but I'm thinking the first couple of names that came into my head. From the 80s, I feel I don't know if he was exactly underutilized, but he should have been a lot more than what he was, Mr. Perfect. And RJ and I were just watching a Raw from 2002, the February 18th episode, and he lost to Kane in a minute. He was underutilized even then, but I feel in the 80s and early 90s, which was kind of his time, so maybe the 80s are wrong. I don't know if I should say 80s for Mr. Perfect. I think he came in the 90s. I forget. If not him, then Dino Bravo, I feel they could have done more with in watching old pay-per-views. Yeah, either Dino Bravo or Mr. Perfect. I think Mr. Perfect, Piper too. I know he was not exactly underutilized, but by that I mean he should have been a world champion. No doubt in my mind that he should have been a world champion in WWE. DiBiase, I don't know if I would call him underutilized, but Mr. Perfect comes to mind. 90s, kind of the same thing. I mean, when I think 90s, I think of the Attitude Era. So if you're saying the 90s, I'm assuming you're talking about the new generation. And if that's the case... I'm trying to think of people from that time period, because you were either really, really good or you just were shitty as fuck. Either you were Shawn Michaels or Duke the Dumpster Droese. So it's hard to say from that era. Like I said, probably Mr. Perfect from the 90s. From the Attitude Era, probably Billy Gunn as a singles guy. I know they tried that. They gave him the King of the Ring. It didn't last very long, but I thought he could have been more as a singles guy, maybe not world champion. but he was a great athlete, and I think they could have done more with him on his own. Same with Steve Blackman. I know he didn't exactly have the charisma of like a superstar, but he was so much fun to watch, and they really could have done more with him in the Attitude Era. Ruthless Aggression Era, there's a lot of names. Like for Ruthless and PG, I got a lot of names here. I'll just name a couple. For Ruthless, I said Benjamin. I know he was well utilized as part of the tag team division when he was teaming with Charlie Haas, but on his own, he could have been a world champion. I don't know who it was, but someone said, I think it was Kurt Hawkins, I was watching something, and they were talking about how they gave him chance after chance after chance, and it was more that Benjamin fucked up than anything else, not WWE. So, take that for what it's worth. But I still feel like Benjamin could have done more. Carlito, same thing. They did have a star in their hands with Carlito, especially early on when he beat Cena for the U.S. title his first night in. And then he was at WrestleMania 21, but he didn't wrestle. I know he was in that segment with Piper in Austin and Stone Cold, but they could have done more with him, I feel like. I know that was kind of towards the end of the Ruthless Aggression Era, but you know what I mean. For the PG era, just see my entire Push to Punish series, but for the couple of names that came to mind, McIntyre, I know he was well pushed early on, but for the final 4 or 5 years that he was with the company, he was fucking wasted. Now, I'm not talking about like he was intoxicated wasted. I'm talking about like he was just completely marginalized. I'm sure you understood what I meant, but I got to clarify. McIntyre, Ted DiBiase, definitely. I was a big DiBiase fan. It looked like they're going to push him early on, but they never really did. They gave him his daddy's gimmick that didn't really work out too well. And by the time they finally turned him babyface, it was like 3 years too late. No one cared. And then he was gone from the company like a year or two later. So DiBiase, and to an extent, Mr. Kennedy. I know injuries got in the way, maybe a backstage attitude, but 07 and 08, I feel like they could have done a lot more with him when he was healthy. But they never really gave him the push that I thought he deserved to make him a world champion that he could have been, especially in the SmackDown brand. But those are just a few of the names that come to mind when I think of underutilized. At Cody Collier, 37, who would you like to see face Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania and why? I've said Chris Jericho at this point. We'll find out more tonight on Raw. But if not Jericho, maybe that Fatal 4-Way, like I said, for the IC title with Styles and Owens and whoever else. So yeah, Ambrose would be nice. I'm trying to think who else. I don't even know. I would put him in the triple threat. I'd put him in the main event, but that's not happening. Like, I was hoping he would win last night. I know he wasn't going to, and he didn't, but I was still kind of holding out hope. But regardless, Jericho is the only one that really comes to mind. I'm sure they're going to figure out something for Dean Ambrose, but he deserves a top spot at WrestleMania. After being I know he was in the opener last year and it was a great match, but he deserves a one-on-one match at WrestleMania this year, in my opinion. And it should be against Jericho or with AJ and whoever else. But him and Jericho, Styles and Owens would be a great match for WrestleMania. Who do you think should face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania and why? Bray Wyatt, I guess, is still a possibility. We'll find out more tonight on Raw. But I don't really want to see that match, to be honest with you. It could be a good match, but Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family have been so heavily damaged that they're just going to get completely fucking buried in Suplex City. They're going to get burned to ashes at WrestleMania in Suplex City, so I don't really want to see that. For Lesnar, him and Sheamus would be cool, but Sheamus means absolutely nothing right now, so probably not. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure. It seems like Bray Wyatt is the only real option right now, because anyone from the League of Nations is a fucking loser. That's not happening. I'm trying to think. Him and Taker, no thanks. Man, I'm thinking like up and down the roster. Rollins is out, Orton is out, so that's not happening. Don't want to see Cena again, even if he is back. Cena should face Taker if that's possible. Him and Lesnar, I don't want to see that either. Like I said, they're fucking losers after last night. So we'll find out, but I'm not exactly sure. If it's not the Wyatt family, I have no idea who else it would be. Batista's not coming back, so I have no idea. At E1, 3A, should Titus O'Neil have Superman punch Triple H instead in order to get a title shot versus career match from Vince? Sure, why not? I guess if you cross the boss on TV in storyline, you get a title shot, but if you touch the boss's arm behind closed... It wasn't really behind closed doors, it was, in plain sight on TV, then you get suspended for 90 days. Where's Roman Reigns' suspension? That's what I want to know. Hashtag free Titus. His second question, should Radical Mongoose, is that a better wrestling nickname than the Lunatic Fringe? I don't know. I don't really think there's much of a difference. I think Radical Mongoose, they're both music. They're both plays on music, right? The Radical Mongoose is something from music. I don't know where the hell that comes from. I know it's Adam Rose's nickname, but I don't know where he got it from. I'm not that much into music that I would know. The Lunatic Fringe, I know, is the name of a song, and they just gave that to Dean Ambrose because he's crazy. Whatever. I think it's a cool nickname. They shove it down your throat, but other than that, I think it's a cool nickname. The Radical Mongoose. I love the Social Outcasts. That's pretty much all that I'll say about that. Who has the most illustrious sex life between Kane, Mark Henry, and Vince McMahon? So if we're talking about in real life here, I'd probably say Vince. I'd imagine Vince, but if we're talking about in storyline, I was hesitant to go with Mark Henry just because of the whole Mae Young stuff. But it's gotta be Kane. It's gotta be. That's gotta be Kane. It's gotta be Kane. Just because I wrote a whole article on this last week, the satire piece about how Kane is WWE's ultimate Valentine. The relationships that he had with Terry, Tori, Lita, Kelly, Almost Eve, most recently AJ Lee, and also, who could forget, Katie Vick. So that's a lot of people that Kane has dated or slept with or fucked when they were dead, or yes, I said it. Look up Katie Vick if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you do, though. So it's got to be Kane. It's got to be Kane. How come JBL likes calling Roman Reigns a hothead when Reigns usually smiles and has really wet hair? Here's the thing, though. I have no idea why he calls him a hothead. I honestly have no idea. But my roommate told me about this, and he's huge into like the Batman Rises movie, which was a really good movie. I'm sure 0.5% of you will know what I'm talking about here, but the opening scene from that movie, and I know this is like almost completely unrelated, but stick with me here. The opening scene of that movie, the opening dialogue between Bane and the guy who plays CIA, who is also from 12 Rounds, by the way, John... I don't know what his name is. It's something... Oh, no. Danny Fisher was named the character in 12 Rounds. I don't know what his name is in real life. But there's this whole scene... Oh, no, not that scene. It's from that movie, though. But there's another scene in that movie, in The Dark Knight Rises, where one of the cops calls somebody a hothead and just makes absolutely no sense. Makes no sense in context. So, a lot of people say that's the joke, and he's calling him a hothead because he's a big Batman fan. Again, like 0.2% of you are going to know what I'm talking about here. My roommate always says that whenever JBL says, whenever he calls Roman Reigns a hothead, he always thinks of that because it's from that scene. I don't know. Other than that, I have no idea why he calls him a hothead. It's fucking JBL and he's a loony, so I honestly have no idea. That was a really random answer, but I just had to bring that up because I thought it was relevant. And it probably wasn't. At Swagzio from Twitter, thoughts on R-Truth and Goldust teaming. Well, for one thing, I know you sent that in before, or maybe you sent that in, no, you sent that in before the pay-per-view, I think. I don't know. But no, you did. You sent that after the pay-per-view. I thought the segment was a total waste with him and Curtis Axel and whatever and the whole Social Outcast. That whole segment on the pay-per-view was a complete waste of time. So I think it's cool. They have funny chemistry together. It's kind of a lot like Booker T and Goldust. So I'd be fine with them teaming, but to take a precious time on pay-per-views is a total waste because no one gives a shit about these guys, at least not right now. The crowd sat on their hands. Like I said, Cleveland was not a great crowd to begin with, but no one really fucking cared. What was one underrated moment at Fastlane? There weren't really many underrated moments, but one moment that stuck out to me that I thought was hilarious was, Owens always does this, but during the Intercontinental Championship match and his match with Dolph Ziggler, he took time out of the match to yell at Michael Cole and tell him to yell at Michael Cole and to tell him to pay attention to his match and whatever. Call the fucking action. He didn't say fucking, I think he said damn though. Call the damn match. That's always funny. So I don't know if that was underrated, but nothing really else from the show I thought was underrated. I thought everything either got the props it deserved or was was just not good. But I thought that moment with Owens yelling at Michael Cole on commentary was great. Owens is always entertaining. I went back after the pay-per-view last night, was watching old Raw Fallout videos from like late last year, and the guy's a fucking riot. Was the Cutting Edge Peep Show a disappointment? Slightly, like I said, some of the back and forth between New Day and Edge and Christian I thought was funny, but by and large, it was a massive flop. I know it was all promotion for the WWE Network show that debuted after the pay-per-view. I only watched the first couple minutes this morning, so I'll watch the rest later. I think it's been fine so far. It's not everyone's cup of tea, I'll say that much right now. But I thought the whole segment itself, I don't know if it was a disappointment. It was a waste of time. The whole League of Nations involvement I thought that made it even worse. So I don't know if I would call it disappointing, but it was a waste of time. At Little Reynolds, who do you think should be the number one contender to the Divas Championship at WrestleMania? So in a perfect world, we should get Becky versus Sasha versus Charlotte for the title at WrestleMania. If not that, then just Sasha versus Charlotte straight up. But I do not want to see a 4-way with Brie or a fatal 4-way in wrestling. That's what we're talking about. The other kind of 4-way maybe, but I'm talking about at WrestleMania here. Get your mind out of the gutter. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't think Brie should be in the title match. I think it should just be a straight-up triple threat. I do not need to see a fatal 4-way or a six-diva or a tag team or a battle royal or an invitational or whatever the hell else at a WrestleMania between the women. So either a triple threat with Becky, Sasha, and Charlotte, or just Sasha and Charlotte straight up. I guess we'll find out more tonight on Raw. At the Average Grunt, does it bother you that WWE keeps suggesting that their world and U.S. titles have the same lineage as the WCW titles? I don't know if it would exactly bothers me. I don't know if it bothers me as much as it does you, but it is annoying. It absolutely is annoying because they do. I don't know if they acknowledge it all the time, like they do from time to time on TV, but it doesn't. Like it's the same thing like they did a couple years ago when they unified the World and WWE championships. They were saying like, oh, this title dates back to 1905 when fucking John Schmidt held it. Like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. The World Heavyweight Championship goes back to maybe WCW, but the lineage of the World Heavyweight Championship before it got retired, it started in WWE. They didn't carry the same lineage. They carried the same belt. They didn't carry the same lineage though from 2002. Absolutely. I mean, they didn't carry the same lineage from WCW, only from 2002 onward. With the WWE Championship, that started in 1963. It wasn't around in 1905 when John Hacker Schmidt was wrestling for the title. That makes no sense. It's the same exact thing. It is annoying when they bring it up. I absolutely agree. It does not carry the same lineage. I mean, the world title is gone now, so it doesn't really matter as much. But the U.S. title, their lineage starts with 2003 onward. It does not, or maybe it doesn't. I'm not exactly sure. No, I don't think I think it does. I think it does carry on beyond WWE. I got to look at like WWE.com again and Wikipedia. I think it does. I'm not exactly sure, but who the fuck knows? I don't think so though. I think their title reign, I think the title lineage rather, starts with when Eddie Guerrero won in 2003. I think that's where it starts. I could be wrong, but that's what I thought anyway. Final question from @Claudio M96_. Has the Wyatt family been buried? I don't know if they've been buried, but they've gotten to the point where I just do not care. So interpret that as you will. If you want to say they've been buried, that's fine. I'm not going to argue against it at this point because they've just been booked so horribly, so fucking horrendously, that it's gotten to the point where whatever they're involved in at WrestleMania, I do not care. Honestly, like they've been losing so much, so decisively. They've been made to look so weak. They're so inconsequential. I love the Wyatt family, but their booking is just putrid, as RJ would say, just putrid. So I don't know if they've been buried, but just everything that has happened to them, not only in the last couple of months, but dating back to when Bray Wyatt lost to John Cena unnecessarily at WrestleMania 30, they have just been so mismanaged, so mishandled, that it's gotten to the point where I don't care anymore. Maybe if they turned him babyface, but until that day comes, I do not give a fuck about these guys at all, unfortunately. It's sad to say, but it's gotten to that point. Last night was like the final nail in the coffin. That's it, guys. Enough ranting for today. That is #AskGSM. Thank you for sending your questions at WrestleRant on the Twitter with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook and tweet me, or leave a comment rather on the wall. On the post I usually put up on Sunday nights, or leave a comment on the wall itself. I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition, including the comment section down below on this very video. Be sure to leave a comment with your question, and I'll answer it next week. So that's it, guys. Enjoy Raw tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed Fastlane. I thought it was a decent show. Like I said, I enjoyed it to an extent. I didn't think it was a great show. If you missed it, you didn't miss that much. But like I said, hopefully tonight's show will kick off the road to WrestleMania, or continue the road to WrestleMania, I guess, technically, on a strong foot, on a strong note, on a high note, I guess, is the right verbiage to use, as WrestleMania quickly nears, as it quickly approaches. A little less than 6 weeks to go. So I'm looking forward to it. The next couple weeks of #AskGSM should be must-see, should be awesome, as The Miz would say. So anyway, guys, enjoy Raw tonight. Have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.